Welcome back, folks, to the Membership Machine Show. This is episode 36. In this episode, we're going to be talking about how startup tips, insights can help you build a successful membership website. The kind of things that are discussed on a lot of podcasts and YouTube about starting a startup can apply to your membership website and can save you a lot of time and money and make sure that your initial idea is the right one. I've got my great co-host here. He's pumped. He's prepared. He's read all my show notes.
I've had my walk.
It's the Spencer. So, Spencer, would you like to introduce yourself to the new listeners and viewers?
Sure. It's Spence from WP-Launchify.com or SpencerForeman.com, no E in Foreman. And you can find me on all social media, including that new Threads thing, Spencer Foreman. And it's worth mentioning, I should say, that we were joking about it, but like whenever these things come out, I always just grab my name as fast as possible. I did try using Threads, and it's amusing. It doesn't have hashtags and it doesn't have GIFs yet, but it does seem to be people are choosing to be nice for the moment. And it does seem to have like a warning. If you're one of those well-known people that lies, it puts like a warning as you pop up for new people. It says this person has a history of not being so truthful. And that seems to be disturbing all of the liars, which I find amusing. But
oh my God.
Anyway, but I want to say one other thing before we jump into the show. What I found more amusing is I did post on Twitter about this. It reminds me of the movie Wall Street with Gordon Gekko and the British Sir whatever his name was, I can't think of it in the moment, where two really, really rich guys are going at each other's throats, because what this is all about is that Elon shit the bed and in my mind lost his position in my own head as being the guy who's going to save us from ourselves and take us to Mars, to being like unwinding in front of us. And Zuckerberg, who has never been anybody's favorite, is just like relishing his chance for revenge by using all of us. And I don't think any of us are going to ultimately benefit, but for the moment, it's fun to watch the two of them go at each other's throats.
Yes,
it was like like Bezos and who was the guy who went for Bezos for the Washington Post?
I can't cope with it.
Clash of the elitists,
the Titans. There we go. Oh, thanks you so much for that, Spencer. So before we go into the main part of this fantastic show, I've got a couple of key messages from my major sponsors. We will be back in a few moments, folks.
This podcast episode is brought to you by Lifter LMS, the leading learning management system solution for WordPress. If you or your client are creating any kind of online course, training-based membership website, or any type of e-learning project, Lifter LMS is the most secure, stable, well-supported solution on the market. Go to lifterlms.com and save 20% at checkout with coupon code podcast20. That's podcast20. Enjoy the rest of your show.
We're coming back, folks. I just want to point out that got some great special offers from the sponsors, plus a curated list of the best WordPress plugins if you're looking to build your membership website on WordPress, and you should, for the flexibility, ownership, and cost savings. It's a great platform, but touring the internet trying to find the right solutions for your WordPress powered website can be a bit frustrating and boring. We've saved you the effort. We've got a curated list of all the best plugins that you need to build a great membership website, and you can get all these goodies by going to WP-Tonic/deals, WP-Tonic/deals, and you find all the goodies there. What more could you ask for? So, Spencer, what I thought in this show is that I think there is still a lot of people that think, I am an expert in my particular area. I have knowledge that would help my target audience. I'm just going to build a membership website and then I'm going to either build audience or market it, and it's going to be fabulous. It's going to be a real success from day one. And that could be the case. We all live in hope, don't we? But also it could be a total waste of time, of money, time, resources, hair, relationships. I think what the startup community kind of give to the table is a kind of roadmap about how you test your idea and what you should do to attempt to, I wouldn't say guarantee is the right word, because nothing in this area can be guaranteed, but decrease the risk of failure. I think that's the way to put it. What's your own thoughts about my synopsis for this episode? Do you think you're going to be kind, please, Spencer? Don't be cruel to me.
I mean, when I was younger, I used to, I rented a small apartment in the town of Hope. And then as I got older, I moved into the next door to the town of Desperation. And now I live in Acceptance. It's a couple zip codes away. When you start a membership site, it is always, in my view, more productive to focus on solving a pain and getting paid before you do anything else. Unless there's something you're doing that, I mean, I'll have to accept the fact that there are people who start membership sites that are altruistic and are doing it purely for a monetary motive. But let's just focus on the monetary side, because I think that's most of whom we're dealing with. So I have, on a regular basis, in fact, this week, at least 2 or 3 of the calls that I've had with my clients have been shiny ball syndrome. Ooh, oh, ooh, 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 ooh. And I'm like, or let's just see who will pay you for the most basic of pain solutions you can deliver. And what that does is it forces you to focus on the thing that really you're doing it for. I mean, we all are attracted. I'm a big fan of gadgets, and I love getting on the show here even and talking about all the new ways of doing things. And that's the main way I make my living, is helping people understand what are the latest tools and techniques. But that I found to do as a hobby, because at the core, the thing that I do that I really, ultimately get paid for is to listen to people and then offer suggestions. And I have 2 tools for that. I have my computer. This is a circa 1966 computer. It works really well. It's very permanent. The
listeners of this show, he's putting up.
I'm holding up a pad.
I think it's a writing pad, and I think something called a pen. I'm not sure. It's before my time, really.
It basically, they killed some trees. They skinned some trees, and they put some ink in a plastic tube under pressure. But it works remarkably well. And then I talk to people. Typically, I will concede to the fact that using Zoom is a really amazing tool now with Fathom to record it. But those 2 tools, I could take money in any way, shape, or form. I take it online through Stripe via a WooCommerce setup. But the idea is still, I'm getting paid for that conversation, that information. I'm not getting paid for the fully automated delivery of the software thing or the, whiz bang, whatever in my coursework or anything. I'm getting paid for the knowledge and the communication in a concierge way. So that's the point. The point is, as I've said in other shows, don't lose sight of why people want to pay you, because you're really solving a pain for them or you're painting a pretty picture. And if you're not doing one of those, there's no amount of gadgets that you distract yourself with that are going to solve the business working versus failing.
So
that's all I got to say about that.
So I've got number 1, test your hypnosis. I can't pronounce it. Oh, God, help me out. Test your idea, basically. So that's any ideas how somebody that's looking to start their first membership website, any concrete ideas based on your experience about how can they test the basic idea?
It's really simple. You need an audience somewhere. It could be one person, but you need somebody who is not, living off your income to be objectively the prospect. And you need to pitch the idea or pitch the pain point that you're going to solve for them or similar. And you have to ask them to pay you for it. If you get one person to do that, then you can go to 2 or 5. And then in that process, you'll have enough people against whom you can try out the various things that you're offering and see which things work better. You know, we all like to use A/B testing where you have one variable, but like in reality, you can start with a few variables and then just have conversations about it. You don't have to be so granular. That is how every long journey starts, with like a couple steps. And the couple steps are: find one human being that you think shares the problem or pain point that you've become interested in solving. And then ask them to pay you.
Yep. I think this is why it's so important to build your audience before you build a small audience, before you build your first membership. Is, you know, through social media and hopefully building a small email list, because if you've got that type of resource or resources, it's going to be much easier to ask them about a product idea that you're thinking investing time and money into, and getting some reasonably honest feedback. That's its importance. And also it will be a mechanism that these people, it's always best that other people talk about your product and service than you.
But that's still that's still much farther down the road. I mean, you're saying hypothesis. Okay.
Hypothesis.
A lot of my experience with people is that they have a really interesting idea to them. The question is that interesting, or does that solve pain for someone with money in their pocket? Because again, like, let's just do this analytically. When you go to the why, you know, the 5 whys is a technique that's often used. Keep saying why, like a little curious kid. Okay. I'm going to create a social network about, you know, how to collect rainwater in a bucket. Why? Well, because the earth is using resources, blah, 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 blah. Why? Well, because I live in a city and I feel bad because the water bills are getting higher. Why? And you go, why? And if you get along the way to a point after 5 of those or more, where you realize that there may be more than one person, i.e. yourself, who shares that experience, then ask, why would they pay you for your information? And if you can successfully do that, then just take the hypothesis, take the 3 bullet points that are of a call to action, you know, like a above the fold billboard, and go to people with that. Say, hi, I'm Spence. I'm going to teach you how to collect rainwater in a bucket and save thousands of dollars a year if you live in the city. Click here to find out more. Like, go and do that. And then you can begin, if they're interested, to test whether they would go from free to a sample for a little money to the full price of the product. And if you get one person to do that, then you can get 2. If you could get 2, and maybe you can get 5. And if you get 5, then you might have the idea of like, now I can start spending time on marketing this to a larger audience. But don't worry about an audience until or unless you've got at least 1 or 2 people, because they just might tell you you're bonkers.
I didn't explain that. I meant before having an audience in the back of your pocket before even the concept of building a membership website comes into your consciousness. That's what I really meant.
Let's talk about what a membership site really means. I mean, to my mind, a membership site is where your business is not a one-to-one. Your business is a one-to-many. You have a problem solution, or you have a way to paint a pretty picture that would be interesting to a large number of people, and you wish to scale that so you're no longer doing one-to-one calls, right? Because otherwise you're a coach or a consultant. And, you know, my primary livelihood, even after 18 years of doing coursework and webinars and one-to-many, I mean, my primary livelihood is still consultancy, which is one-to-one. But a membership site, which is something that I'm going back into again with my latest endeavor, is a very attractive way to scale something that has proven itself out in one-to-one relationships. But now you want to offer it to a larger number of people for a lesser per person cost. That's really what it's commoditizing something.
All right, let's go on to number 2 point I wrote down. Prove the value matrix. The reason why I put this one down is that a lot of people think they can prove the value of their membership website by building what I call War and Peace. A course with about 40 different lessons, modules, endless quizzes, videos, PDFs, everything, taken 6 to a year to build out. Childbirth would be less painful in some ways. Sorry, ladies, I'm not being dismissive. But I don't think that proves your value matrix at all. So you got any insights about how you can prove that without building War and Peace?
Yeah, I think anybody who still believes that is living in a different century, or maybe not a century, a different decade.
There's still a lot of people, especially a lot of people, they do. It's understandable in some ways, isn't it? They think if we offer a ton of value, it automatically will mean that this is going to be a success, don't they?
Well, let's use a metaphor. Let's use a example from the real world. Let's say you have an extraordinarily painful headache and you pop into a local pharmacy, a chemist's, as we say, on the island, and you go in there.
What bloody voice was that?
That was my Harry Potter voice. So,
Harry Potter.
What do they call a pharmacy in Great Britain? A chemist.
Chemist.
Yeah. So let's say you pop into a pharmacy here in the United States. What do you think?
It's a different language, really, listeners and viewers, isn't it?
What do you? We'll go into bin versus garbage can. What do you think sounds more attractive to you as a person with a pain? Wandering endlessly to shelves on your own, or having a pharmacist who comes up to you and says, "Oh, you look like you have some trouble. Hold on. I have this list of 120 things that we're going to go through to figure out what's wrong with you. Let's start with, question number 1. And it'll only take about 4 hours for me to go through all the questions." Or the pharmacist who comes up and says, "You're holding your head. It looks like you have a headache. Would you like some pain reliever for your headache?" Here it is. Because in the world we live in, at least the world I'm living in, attention spans have gone from like normal down to microscopic. And the value proposition for people today in a world of infinite automatic tools, infinite self-search, is concierge curation. You want somebody who has the knowledge about you and can interpret what they hear or learn from you and offer you a specific curated solution, spoon fed, not 8 million things that you have to go through, not a 20-week process, not a endlessly wander looking for it yourself. I see you, I understand you, I ask questions, I deliver to you something that totally resonates immediately. That's where the value proposition is today. So whereas it might have been true in the past, the more lessons I have, the more value it is. I think it's the inverse now. If you can deliver in a workshop type format, 1 hour, like everything somebody needs to succeed with their membership site, or with the topic of your own membership site, that's the win that people will pay for versus, oh my God, really? You think I have enough time to sit here and go through 24 lessons and 40 videos? I mean, let alone for yourself, evergreen content is impossible. That's one of the things that I started in WordPress with, took me out of the game of making content, because making evergreen content in a world where WordPress was like a snow globe being shaken up on a daily basis was nearly impossible.
Can you explain what you mean by, because some of our listeners.
So in the early days of WordPress, one of the successes I had was for finding web designers who knew enough about HTML, CSS, PHP, but they didn't realize there was a market opportunity to sell to business owners who wanted a WordPress website. They looked at WordPress like a toy. It kind of was. But I showed them how to make stuff with the tools and skills they had that were saleable. Then the page builders came along around 2014, which made things very easy. But that's where the marketing opportunities started to develop and float to the top of WordPress, where people could go, instead of asking for a cup of coffee, I can make a business selling plugins, selling themes, selling solutions. And as soon as that happened, it was like a gold rush. So when you're trying to make coursework with videos and photos and documentation in a gold rush mentality where every day something's changing about the core of WordPress or the popular plugin or which tools to use, it was endlessly tiresome to try to keep up with the content, because every day, again, in a 15 lesson course, every day I had to change something, had to remake a video, had to re-edit a photo. It was exhausting. That's where I shifted the business eventually out into more of a consultancy so that I could dynamically work with people. Go, today at 11:30, this is the latest thing. After lunch, it might be different. And so that was what is true since 2014, but even more so now, except my argument is that we've reached a point in WordPress for the tool set that you use that if you choose a specific stack, as I've allocated, you can actually escape the hamster wheel of this.
Yeah, it's finding bad. My position, and I kind of agree with 80% of what you say, but I do think you also want to keep your eye out, but you just got to control yourself, because I do agree with you. You can go bonkers in WordPress.
Well, there's techniques you can use, like whatever content you make. Here's a couple quick tips on the membership making side. When you make your video content, never include headers or footers or branding in it. Just make it as generic as possible. Why? Because in the future, when you put that content in, you can post it in a way that has your header footer around the video, but the content can be evergreen. B, don't ever talk about the product name or the price. Because again, you may make content that some bits of it change, but you can slice and dice it as long as it's generic. But if you've intertwined the product name and the price all throughout your content, you have to start from scratch. You literally have to remake the videos over again. And that, along with the documentation, guess what? People have such a short attention span. They don't want documentation that takes an hour to read either. Give them like 5 bullet points, and it says, if you have a question, email me. That's enough.
Right, on to the next one. I hammer away at this, and I've got a good example as well that's on top of mind. Minimum viable product. This is kind of gospel in the startup SaaS bootstrap community. Build a minimum viable product. And I was talking to a possible new customer of ours, a successful author in a niche, seen as checked him over, and he's written about 3 to 4 books in his specific niche area. He's got a new book coming out in the next 6 months, and he wanted to build a membership website. So he was having a Zoom with me, and he was looking for us to build the whole thing out for him. And he got all these ideas, Spence. And I said to him, why don't we just look at a minimum viable course? Why don't we just start off small? Now, I would love to work with you. I'd love to take your money. But I think if we go down the War and Peace route, I think it's gonna be very frustrating for you, and I don't want you to feel that way, because it's not even any good for me, because I'm looking for them to come back and have a successful relationship with these people. I said, why don't we build a minimum course? And he's got a fair bit of YouTube content, and he's got a great, not a massive, but about a 5,000 person email list. He's got 3 to 4 books in his niche. This is a strong person that under the right guidance will probably get a success. So I said, why don't we build this minimum course, and then you can use it as a lead magnet. You can utilize it. So you use it initially to engage, and then it could be either a low cost trigger, or it could be a free lead magnet product. Right. He loved the idea. Hopefully, he's gone off on his holidays, and hopefully in September I'll get back to him and he'll still be interested. But I think that's what you should be looking at. You need to avoid War and Peace like the plague.
I mean, because at the end of the day, it's momentum. Once you have something singular that somebody will buy and they help you to understand why they wanted to buy it, then that can lead to a spin-off or a second thing or expanding it. But if you don't have the momentum of one successful thing that you've sold to more than one person, it just seems odd that you want to get like, I'm going to make the whole Encyclopedia Britannica from day one. Why don't you just start with one story, one thing, and see if somebody wants it? Because what if it does turn out to be that nobody wants that? Then you've just wasted all that exponential effort to make an encyclopedia instead of a story. And the funny thing about it is too, I mean, there's many people very successful that are marketing online who they just do like, they call it a workshop, or they call it like a mastermind group, or they call it like a, blankety blank. And it's just, I'm going to take 200 people and that's it. And you can be one of the early people. I'm going to be doing this method myself. It's not like the Jeff Walker launch method, but it is a modern way of scaling things down to being like, hey, I'm having like a barbecue at my farm. And I can fit only 200 people on the property, the fire code says. So do you want to be one of those people? It's not going to be, it's a $200, show up, don't show up. But you know what I mean? Like, it's a limited risk, huge potential for you, but it's a learning thing for me. If you start with that, then you get an infinite amount of data about what people want, what they don't want, what they like, what they don't like, right? I mean, it's just such a great opportunity.
Yeah, I'll give you an example of this. And it's from Lifter LMS. The people from Lifter LMS are a great team. The CEO founder's a close personal friend of mine, the joint founder. And the team in general at Lifter LMS are just great. And they offer a tremendous level of support for the free product and for the paid products. And they offer weekly Zoom discussion support. There are people, and it's got nothing to do with Lifter LMS. This applies to any platform. There's people on some of these calls that have been trying to build their membership website for over a year plus, and they add this feature, they add that feature. They want to know about this. They want to know about that. They want to know the other. I've come to the conclusion that some of them, I sometimes butt in, but I just listen in the background because it's just great to listen to people's frustration, problems. It just gives a free insight. So I just join and I mostly listen. But I've come to the conclusion that some of these people, they will never launch because they haven't grasped the concept of a minimum viable product.
Well, that's a bigger issue too. One of the things that I found out in the early days of my WordPress membership sites, there's a slight difference, but it's an important difference between teaching people the mechanics of a website. Like, the deliverable will be, you can make this exact thing I'm showing you. That's objectively possible for almost anybody capable of just going A, B, C, D, and E. But in my earlier businesses, I had the business I was teaching was how to succeed financially with WordPress. But the basic premise was I was teaching people how to sell their services to people. And the linchpin as to why that had to shut down, besides the fact that the page builders took over, was that 90+% of people did not want to actually email or call or talk to anybody who was a prospective customer. It was like literally teaching people how to be a circus performer, and nobody wanted to actually go to a circus to try to apply for a job. So it was just a bound to be disappointing group of customers. So be careful, not only to be, brief, but make sure that the thing that you're teaching, the thing you're doing, actually aligns with what people are willing to participate in. Because, going on a death march of creating content about some nonsense here and there is pointless. Most of the businesses that I found that are my clients who succeed have something really simple. Like, one of the ones that I'm not like making a judgment about what it is, but like, for example, many states have requirements for driving a forklift or firing or owning a handgun or something. The reason they're successful is because the thing they're doing is saving the business owner who has employees, or saving the handgun owner, whatever, a shit ton of time of getting the thing they really need, which is the certificate. because for insurance purposes, the business owner needs employees that have forklift driving certificates. The handgun owner needs to have a handgun. Like you're not judging them whether they're good at driving a forklift. It's just they're being offered something that their employers are willing to pay for because it jumps the line of the person going to a physical place and sitting in a classroom for the weekend. You see what I mean? So your pain solution ethically has to align with what your beliefs are, but ultimately there's lots of things I could think of that are services that can be commoditized into memberships or to businesses like memberships, and people are paying for it just because of the convenience factor.
The last point before we go for our break.
May I pause 1 second? I just thought of
sure.
something. I was listening to our good friend Nathan Wrigley had a show that it was listening to on a podcast. I think it was David Wamsley too, who shows up now and again, right? So it was maybe a week or two ago, but he was talking about the GPL vault, GPL clubs with WordPress plugins. They're membership sites, but what they
we're going back to that.
No. Let me just hold on. Let me make my point.
No, I was just saying that this is. I'm not having a go at you at all, but this regularly rears its head. It seems. I don't know if you agree.
Well, he misunderstands it. They were very objectively thorough, and they were playing black hat, white hat. I think Nathan was being coy because he acted the part. He's such a gentleman and a good host, but he acted the part of like, oh my, this really goes on. And I'm like, right, or whatever.
Yeah, he's a really nice guy.
He's such a great guy. But the point is, he was playing the part, I think, and then David was playing I'm bringing the news. And David was more like the cheeky, I've actually done this. We all know what it is, but the point is, we've covered this territory forever. But let's just talk about the concept as it applies to membership sites. The thing that the GPL clubs do is to acknowledge that the moral and ethical and business decision about plugins and themes in the WordPress space being open source, free for anybody, has been resolved forever. All they're doing is making a convenient way, if you pay $15 a month, for you to get the plugins and themes that you want to try. And then if you wish, like I tell my own clients to whom I give software, if you want the relationship and the support and the updates from the authors, you go get it because that's what they're selling. But the idea is the clubs are not being cheeky and they're not dangerous because what they're doing is saying, look, hold on, there's a convenience that you're selling to people. The ethics behind it, the morals behind it are irrelevant because it's not illegal. It's already been resolved. It's not any different than like clubs if you go to a state like Utah where you're not allowed legally to have a liquor store. So they have drinking clubs when you go to the ski resort. So I wanted to bring that point into what are you solving as a pain point? Many of the best successful membership sites I know about are just looking at the law and looking at the morals and saying, I'm going to deliver the convenience to those people who feel as I do that this is ridiculous.
Right. On to point 4. Because I'm not going to get in.
I'm not getting at the GPL itself. I'm just saying here in
WordPress. I just don't want it because my position to yours is a bit different, but I just don't want to get into it.
I mean,
so prove
an example of the same thing.
Yeah, right. Prove it can be sold at a profit. Is the business sustainable? I think it's all right having a special an early bird price to get your first group in, but then I always think it's better to pitch it higher because you can always lower. If you've got a lower price and you try and bun it up, that's harder unless you do what you suggest because you've accepted it. You just grandfather people in and then you put the price up. So, but I do think it's a little bit harder to put your prices up. But you disagree. Well, off you go.
Shaking my head for those who are not watching the video.
Yeah, go on.
I could not disagree more.
Right, yeah.
All right. So here's why. If you are launching a new business, a new membership site, a new service, if you make it part of the premise, like we were just discussing, I need to build an audience of people who are like-minded, who are attracted to the same problem that I have solved. And in doing so, you say, look, if you put your trust in me, I'm starting at this price today, and I think it's really good value, even though I don't really know where this is going, and I may change direction. And you're coming along for a ride with me. But I promise you the following, and I will never let you down. Number one, I will be very candid about what I know and I don't know, and I'll always do my best to deliver you that like concierge value. So it's an experience as much as it is as a ready-baked solution. Number two, if I succeed, you will be forever in my, first class of successful supporters, and I will protect you and your support of me by never, ever raising my price on you for the very same thing. It doesn't mean I won't sell you something different or else, but you will be grandfathered in forever if I raise the price. And if it does turn out that I raise the price and you grandfathered in, sometimes I'll even move you to a higher class of service just for the convenience. Like if I ever move to, God forbid, a lifetime model or something else. Now, why does this work? It works because, A, you're making a promise about something that very few human beings by our nature can avoid, which is our tribalism, our desire to belong, to go on an adventure with somebody they believe in who has the same thing. Number two, you're saying I'm starting at the lowest price, but this is going to succeed. And when it does, I'm going to be charging other people more, but not you guys. And number three, you get a huge social proof win, because if it does succeed and if people believe in you, you ask all those people to give me the social proof about how awesome this journey was, how awesome the product is, how awesome I was. And then that acts to sell the new people at the higher price. And they're going to be your ultimate fanboys. They're never going to leave. And by the way, the catch is as long as you never cancel. So if it's a recurring subscription and you're in at $27 a month, and by X number of weeks later, everyone else is $97 a month, just never cancel. If you cancel, you already knew.
You're finished. The relationship's over. You're the past.
And that has worked since forever. If you start at a higher number and you go down, you've admitted failure publicly.
Yeah.
You just have. You overshot the runway. Your airplane is in a ditch. The cars are driving by. They're evacuating the passengers. There's no coming back from that. If you start low and go up, you're starting with like, I'm learning to fly.
Oh, I see where you're coming from. All right, fair enough. I'll give it a think. Rachel, we're going to go for our break. We will be back in a few moments, folks. Coming back, Uncle Spence is in full flow. I just want to point out, folks, if you're looking for a great WordPress hosting provider for your WordPress membership website or community-based website, have a look at WP-Tonic. That's what we specialize in. We offer a full suite of plugins, fully licensed, plus email functionality and a host of other add-ons to our superb hosting and support. We are a quality support partner. We believe in it, and we spend a lot of time and money supporting our entrepreneur membership clients. If you're looking to build your first membership website on WordPress, we are a great valued partner. So go over to WP-Tonic and have a look at what we can offer. I'm sure you'll want to join us. So I think you've mentioned this before on a couple of the other previous episodes, and I totally agree with you. The essential is to get some ensure quick initial customer successes. I think that really is really down to the content that you're going to produce. You really got to work out the minimum viable product, and in the first and two lessons, is there some real value you can offer in the first 2 to 3 lessons that will get some insight, some early victory for the student, which is the opposite of what we discussed in the first half, the war and peace syndrome, as I call it. So what's I know you've talked about this before, but maybe you can recap it again.
I mean, basically what I'm suggesting is, in today's economy and mindset and so forth, that I really hesitate to offer really multi-lesson courses. I think it would be more beneficial to have a single workshop format. Like literally it's one lesson, one video. But if you can't do that, then have as few as possible so that people do not feel overwhelmed upon opening the book. Like give them the Reader's Digest or the Cliff Notes version of what they need so they can get the win initially and build a relationship with you. Because the problem of everybody listen, I can use lots of examples, but I had this back surgery. I'm walking every day. I'm spending hours renovating my leg and all the rest of the stuff. So I have lots of time to do stuff, and I'll listen to podcasts or ebooks or whatever. But, like sitting down and reading a long form book has been a consistent challenge for me over the last number of years because, the time to sit there and at the exclusion of everything else requires me to kind of reformulate the limited time that I'm awake as a 56-year-old. And that's an example of how, like, I used to get great thrill in reading Stephen King novels, like The Stand or something. It was like
The Master.
1,200 pages. I just
the rats
lose myself. But then I think about it now. That's something that is no longer as easy to accomplish versus, well, if I listen to a novel while I'm walking, 2 hours a day or something.
You got to admit, I think Stephen's, even now, a lot of people when they get super successful and super rich, but Stephen's always kind of semi-ground. I think he's still a cool person, don't you?
Well, he's like he's the Paul McCartney of novelists. He's just so prolific forever. He's had so many great things. It's not a judgment about his books, but the length of his books is not 250 pages, right? No matter what it is. And so whichever version of whatever you're reading, you're going to have a commitment. And so as I think of those things, like a novel, reading versus listening to, I used to listen to a guy who, his name was Dan something. And it was like about, I want to think of the name of the podcast. It was like multi-part podcast about the history of warfare and like Genghis Khan and World War I. It'll come to me, and he still offers them. But it was like maybe like it's 100 parts of how the whole start of World War II and I would walk every day listening and captivated. But it must have been 100 hours of content because I was able to squeeze that into doing something else. If you're offering a course, don't make people feel like they've got to carve something out of their life in order to make it happen, because it's less likely to attract the kind of people you want. People want instant gratification today. They want it spoon-fed.
Yeah, I think this multi-lesson, multi-engagement, I think there's two factors here why it was pushed a bit. The first thing is the 4-hour week that and I'm not totally, you can automate and have a lifestyle, but I think the people that push the 4-hour week have evergreen, automated, you can make a great living. It was all just pushed too far. The second thing is technology and COVID. It showed people there's no need for it, because what you can offer in different membership levels, you can offer a smaller course that can be a lead magnet. You can have a medium-sized course, and then you can offer extra, which is either group engagement on a weekly basis led by you, or if people want one-to-one access to you, they've got to pay for that on a higher level. So there's really no need to build out. There's models utilizing technology that can give people ever increasing access at different levels, isn't there?
No, because, tools have replaced a lot of the manual processes. The reason people need to know stuff, like I was describing a moment ago, might not be actually what you think it is. Again, there never has been a forklift driver ever who said, I want to know the history and philosophy of driving a forklift. They want to know how to drive a forklift so they get the certificate so they can have a job in a warehouse, right? Like that's it. So if you understand the why behind people's desire to learn what you're teaching, then that makes it much easier to deliver it as quickly as possible with the least amount of fanfare or pretense. I think there are those who teach for the purpose of teaching, and that stuff typically should be free. But for those that are selling it, you just have to understand why. Why does somebody want this? And it's usually, like I say, I think it's usually to solve a pain point that is not necessarily the thing that's obvious. This is I borrowed this from Seth Godin about why does somebody buy a drill? Many times it's not because of the motor or the plastic or, oh, look, this is so lightweight. It's because they need to put a shelf on the wall to have a picture of their family at their office where they're spending 20 hours a day grinding away.
But it does
remind
depend
them of why,
Yeah, but it does depend on the person that's utilizing the drill. You've got the occasional DIY individual, and then you got the semi or full professional crowd, and they would buy a melee drill that costs, I don't know what the average drill now costs, but when my father, I knew some people that were professional tradespeople, they would buy melee, and
but you have to. That's what you have to understand. Are you marketing this to the professional, semi-professional, the person who cares about the horsepower? They're going to drop it off a ladder, or are you really marketing to the person who just wants to get that shelf up quickly? And it's a big difference, because the person who wants to get the shelf up quickly, guess what? Here's your instruction sheets. Here's your pitch. It's like, don't forget your family while you're working hard. This drill will get that picture on the wall in 5 minutes. And your instruction sheets are take drill hole, remove drill, put shelf up. Like, you don't need to list the 10,000 things a professional might use it for. You only need to list the one, which means you don't need 20 lessons. You need one lesson on how to use this drill to hang a shelf. So, I mean, that's the kind of point we're talking about, which is understanding who is using your thing and why will allow you to curate and concierge deliver something much easier than if you're making one size fits all for everyone, which really never works out well.
Right. On to number 6, sales funnels. I think, so what are some of the mistakes you've seen people make about sales funnels? Let's face it, was sales funnels really important in some ways. ClickFunnels built a whole business, a multi-million-dollar business on some cranky old SaaS software, but the fact one of the founders is a fantastic marketer. The software itself was always a bit iffy, in my opinion. But so, what are some of the fundamental things that, based on your experience, you think people got to understand when it comes to sales funnels that are scalable and successful?
Well, I mean, obviously I have my expertise in sales funnels because I write the Launch Flows plugin, which makes WooCommerce act like a sales funnel. And Russell Brunson and ClickFunnels have proven, along with many others, that, again, the software itself doesn't have to be amazing. People don't care what the software is. They care what it does and how it achieves some purpose for them. And that is by shifting the focus away from, I like to call it the Home Depot experience, into the concierge guy or woman with the orange vest experience. So if you were somebody that was a customer looking to acquire one of these products or solutions that a prospective vendor has, what sounds better? Going to their Home Depot, wandering endless aisles of millions of options and parts, hoping to stumble across what you need. And if it's multiple pieces, knowing which aisle and we've all been to Home Depot. I used to make a living building houses.
No, I don't actually. I just hire people to do it. I haven't got the time or energy to do it.
But that's a sales funnel, or in a sales funnel model, the sales funnel is designed to elicit from the prospects information about what they're probably looking for and handing it to them in a way that they literally can't escape the steps. Like, oh, you want to hang a picture? You need a drill? And is this a small frame or big frame? Like, the steps are very controlled. And just like, again, if you imagine a funnel where it goes from a big wide thing to a narrow thing, you're not allowing somebody to randomly go off and shop through your content, your store, your whatever. And it works so well because you can manage from the time they're a prospect till after they're a customer, what you offer them, what they've chosen, what they bought. You can track the journey and you can improve the user's experience, because, again, like, you see this in Amazon, you've seen this at Apple, you've seen really good stores who do that. It's like, I need a mobile tablet. Okay, big or small. This one, okay, great. Well, maybe you also need these things. Maybe you need the holder or the accessories. And so those are sales funnel examples of understanding why somebody needs what you're offering in a membership site and delivering them the option to buy it without having to browse a store, use a cart, go through an ordinary lengthy checkout process. And part of that is also understanding, take as little information from them as possible, but absolutely you need to take their email first, because otherwise they're a lost prospect.
Yeah, it's kind of linked. You remember, I have to ask her to come back on for an interview because I still listen to her podcast. Kim Dole, you know Kim?
Who?
Kim Dole.
Oh, Kim. Yeah, we're good
Yeah.
friends. Yeah, she's great. She was
Yeah.
on a little sabbatical in
Yeah.
Costa Rica for a while.
Yeah, God knows where she is. She
She's back
roams
now.
the world. She roams the world.
She moved back to the States.
I remember listening to one, and Kim's got I would say, do go over and folks and listen to Kim's podcast, the Kim Dell podcast. She has the ability to almost talk for 45 minutes on her own. How she manages it, I do not know, but it's a skill which I do not have. But I remember one of her old shows. She went to a ClickFunnels convention, and Kim is not. Kim's a hardcore marketer. She won't mind me saying this. She's no virgin to digital marketing. She said she goes to this ClickFunnels convention, and she said they're hitting you for $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, and the special $100,000.
What do you get for that?
I can't tell you what I would expect for $100,000.
You get to have dinner with Russell at his house with this kid.
Yeah, they're doing something. I'm sorry, folks, but honestly, even her was aghast at it. Was as soon as you entered into this convention, it was rammed down your throat. Because, give
very
me a
Tony
break.
Robbins style.
Yeah, basically.
But you got to understand something, like that doesn't so much qualify as a sales funnel, but what that does expose is that there's self-service, there's sales funnel self-service, and then there's like high ticket selling one-to-one. All right. We haven't talked about it. It's not part of today's show, but there's an entire industry. I think I'm in that business in a weird way, around the notion that if you do have a one-to-one conversation with clients, you can often sell them better without any kind of sales process on your website. For example, at WP Launchify, because most of it is consultancy in nature, I do have some starter products, $100, $300, $500, but those are just there as bookmarks. So if during the call somebody says, yes, I want this, I can point them to just click on it. But there has yet to be anybody that I can think of in all these years that has ever wandered over to WP Launchify on their own without talking to me first and purchased a consultancy thing. They do the free call sometimes 5-6 times a day, but they've never done the buying of the product. So there's 3 sales methods that we're talking about, and you're referring to the third one. They get you to the convention, paid probably, but then they hit you with the holy mackerel, you're not getting out of here with your wallet intact. That's not unusual in some of those cases. People who are in a live event have committed emotionally, mentally, and financially to being there. They're kind of already, it's the psychology term, I forget the name, but once you've made the subconscious commitment to the purchase, it's like a lead magnet going to a tripwire. You've already committed to spending a little money. Your mind says, I've already made it to this convention. I might as well do this. I'm already here. You know what I mean? I'm all in.
Well, it just seems, it's really fascinating, but it's a whole subject for another podcast, really. The psychology of sales, really. Does your sales bucket have holes in it? So do you have a leaky bucket? I think that's the other thing. I think you can get, and it's kind of going to wrap it up, and it's combine. You've got a leaky bucket with reducing churn, because I've known quite a few I'm dealing with a client now that's got a highly successful membership website. They moved away from WordPress a couple of years ago. It's been they went for a fully custom coded solution.
Mm-hmm.
It was a total pain in the arse. They've decided to come back to WordPress because they also like the freedom, but it was too much. A full custom solution just turned out to be a nightmare. So it's got over 5,000 members, but they've got a problem with churn because they had a lot of people sign up when they're on automatic subscription. The subscription isn't at a very high rate, and because they built this custom website, it was so painful updating things and working with it that they kind of pulled back on the pedal, if you understand, about updating content and really proving. So they've learned their lesson, and they need a platform that makes it really easy for them to put new content up, blah blah blah. But this is important when you get to a certain stage, making sure because a lot of people can, and it comes from the startup community, doesn't it? That you can have a good sales lead generation, but you've got a leaky bucket. So you're filling the bucket and it's got loads of holes in it, hasn't it?
Yeah. I mean, this is just the same thing we talked about, where if you're not delivering value, or if you're making people work too hard, or if your product takes too long to start to consume, you're just going to lose folks. That's it. You know what I mean? You're just literally going to lose folks. And in doing so, I mean, what have you accomplished, right? It'd be better if you just had a better understanding of what it is they really wanted and needed, and you delivered that in a limited form, than to try to do I'm going to over please. Nobody has ever said, honestly, in the last couple of months, let alone years, gee, I wish there was more stuff here for me to consume. Like, no way. Because we all have access. Like, I mean, maybe not everybody uses it, but we all have access to Google search, or we have AI search, or we have a friend, or we have a website. The problem is too much. I have, jokingly, 5 different channels of things on the Roku TV, Netflix, Hulu, Disney, Prime. It's like, I sit down, I watch Casablanca from 1941. It's like, or whatever it was. It's like, I literally was so overwhelmed with choices that I end up going to a movie from 70 years ago, right? And so you don't want to make people's lives harder by giving them more stuff. You want to eliminate everything other than the personal relationship part. And if you can't deliver it personally, then scale it to a limited extent, like a small group of members, or a very small, like, promise of a workshop versus 26 lesson courses. That's it. Plus, to be honest, going back to the GPL thing, going back to like Teachable and all these platforms, lynda.com, like my local library has the ability for me to go for free to lynda.com, right? There's a tool called Libby or Hoopla. You can use it if you have a library card. Our old friend Morton Rand Hendrickson is a teacher. There's tons of amazing stuff on lynda.com now that it's owned by LinkedIn. So much so that I can't even bear the thought of trying to start one of those things. I mean, like, seriously, too much. Not that it isn't great content. It's just that unless I have a use for something that takes me 26 lessons, like financially, I can't bear the thought. On the other hand, I'll show up all day long, every day, for an hour at a time to listen to Nathan and whomever,
or listen to this podcast. Our audience is increasing.
I'll show up to anybody's cocktail party with appetizers, but don't ask me to sit down to a 10-piece banquet or whatever it's called.
Just to finish off,
and maybe that's me. I mean, but I don't think it's me. I think based on my own customers and my audiences, that's something we're all dealing with these days.
I think one of the things that has puzzled me is I've never been really that good at getting I'm always amazed at the people that come up to me at a word camp, or a guest that comes on my other podcast that says, I've been listening to you for years, Jonathan. I had a guest come on the show 2 episodes ago, and says, yeah, I'm a regular listener, love what you do, Jonathan. And but I never felt I've been that successful in getting real community engagement, really. I'm always amazed at other people that seem to get enormous amount of engagement through whatever channel they're utilizing to get that engagement.
I mean, but what does that mean? What are they getting? You know, I'm rhetorically saying this because we're not speaking about anybody particularly, but like engagement of people showing up and liking you. You know, there's people with YouTube channels that have millions of viewers. There's people with the other day I don't know, I was like, oh, I have 1,000 Twitter followers. Like, what does that do for me? Nothing, less than nothing. 5,000 people follow me on Facebook. Who cares? Because it doesn't convert into money. And then what's ironic is I was just mentioning like some of the better marketers today who have just restarted with a new idea. I know they made hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars in the past. They have 321 people in their audience. But you know what? That's 200 people paying $500 each. You know what I mean? Do the math on that. It's big money. So the idea is you don't need a large audience. You just need a paying audience that's proportional to the time you've spent.
Right, yeah, I think we'll wrap it up. I think it's been a good discussion. So, Spencer, what's the best way for people to find out more about you, what you're up to, and your thoughts, ideas, and abilities?
You can get a free call with me at WP-Launchify.com about, again, the solution that you might be needing for your WordPress business. Typically, if you're a creator who's selling membership stuff, you and I have similar businesses, but I generally focus on the marketing automation and the technical complication and stuff. The deliverables and so forth are slightly different as well. So I'll let you speak to your own. But like for me, it's the people who are either have a Frankenstein monster and need a fix, or people who are hatching a bird out of a nest and they just want to get it out going, but not necessarily like a total done for you bespoke thing. And you can find me on social media at spencerforeman.com. No, it's Spencer Foreman. Sorry, Spencer Foreman.
That's fantastic.
Leave off the E for savings.
All right. If you want to support the show, and hopefully you are finding this content really useful, our audience is growing. It's great to see that. Please share it on your social media, especially, and tell other people about it. The more people we get involved, the bigger the community, the more benefit more people will get from it. So please consider that. We will be back next week with another great topic. We'll see you soon, folks. Bye.